meets that thing called life. The NFL schedule breakdown here, speaking on the 2023-2024 schedule coming up here, and we appreciate you being here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Can't thank you enough for being a part of the show. So as we continue the conversation here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, we can't, like I said, we can't thank you enough for being here. We apologize for the internet issues that have arisen over this, really honestly, in these last couple of years of COVID. I feel like certain things go in and out. But happy to be here with you. Happy to be broadcasting on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. And as we continue the conversation here, speaking on the NFC West, looking at the Seahawks Thursday night football game at the Cowboys and their Turkey Day game against the 49ers that I had mentioned before, putting them in, prime time is big here. And so I think that obviously that's huge to see that. And, so that schedule for them is a good thing. And I think, Geno Smith and his uptick and what he's been able to do, that's been big for them as well. So definitely a lot of good stuff coming up here. They don't have a Sunday night football game as of right now. So that's not going to be happening for the Seattle Seahawks here. And unfortunately, but hopefully, this team has definitely sparked this year. And I think there's a lot of good that's come from them. And I think that a lot of people should be excited about this if this is your team. So, as far as Monday Night Football, they have a Monday night game, which is going to be October 2nd, which is week 4, that Monday night game against the New York Giants. So we'll put some Monday Night Football here as well against the New York Giants, which that'll be potentially a good game. Again, where, these teams early on in the season figuring themselves out. Can Daniel Jones really be the future of this team is going to be a question that we'll have to look at here. And, outside of that, that's so, you're on Thanksgiving, you're on Thursday Night Football, you're on Monday Night Football. So if you're a Seahawks fan, you got something to be really excited about. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and be back right after this with more coming up of the NFL schedule breakdown.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvel Ice. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvelange, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily, and we bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant is different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family friendly. Some family friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and our continuation of the 2023-24 NFL schedule breakdown, taking a look at what's going on here for this season. And so we went to the NFC East, we went to the NFC West, and now we're going to go to the NFC North. We're going to start things off with the Chicago Bears, the Chi-Town Bears. The Bears are going to get a Thursday night football game. That's going to come in Week 5 for them. So let's put the Bears up here on the screen. So the Week 5 matchup, Bears at Commanders. So like I said, the Commanders, it depends on where they're going to be, and this also depends on where the Bears are going to be. But, you get some Thursday night football, you get eyes just on you. So that's a big one. Then they have another Thursday night football game 5 weeks later on Week 10. They have Panthers at the Bears. So they have the Panthers at home. So they have another Thursday night football game. So we're going to see the Bears on Thursday night football twice this season. At least twice, and no rotating and all that. So we got them on those two games. The Bears getting 2 Thursday night football games. Some people might agree. Some people might just disagree. Hopefully Justin Fields will be healthy and we'll be able to see some good things come from the Bears. And then the Chicago Bears are also going to be playing in Week 8 on Sunday night football. So in Week 8 of this season, we have the Bears going up against the Chargers. So they'll be on the road at the Chargers. And this will be for Sunday night football. And that's going to come to us in Week 8. So they're going to have an interesting interesting season of having these big time, prime time games for the Chicago Bears. Who would have thunk it, right? And then, they have matchup wise, it's not something that you say, oh, okay, Chicago, going into the season, that this is going to be a team to beat. Are they going to be a middle of the road type of team? But they're going to get their opportunity to get out in front of you and see you for these games. Three primetime games for the Bears. 2 Thursday night footballs and a Sunday night football game. Interesting here that was the choice for the NFL because of the Bears, not really being that great in recent history. The Detroit Lions, on the other side of it, this is an uptick team, right? This is a team that people have high hopes in and faith in that this could be a playoff team. And Dan Campbell as their head coach, this, could he be finally the guy that's going to lead the Lions out of the dungeon? In Week 4, they're going to have Thursday night football at the Packers. So we have this game that's going on. So Week 4 at the Packers, some TNF here, some Thursday night football for the Lions. So that'll be a good one for them to be able to showcase themselves and get on your televisions all around the world as the only game that night. So, seeing the Lions, and then to start off the season, right? You have that first game that's going to be on September 7th. So going back to that one here, on September 7th, we're going to have on Thursday night as well, we're going to have Detroit versus Kansas City. So you got Kansas, you got the Lions at Kansas City, and that's going to be happening here to start off the season. So this is kickoff on Thursday night football. So they're going to get 2 Thursday night games here because the Thursday night game that's going to start off the season with the Lions and the Chiefs. So think about that. They get to usher in the season this season, and they get to be on Thursday night football. So, I mean, those are big time things for the Detroit Lions and big time things for Detroit Lions fans. My resident fan that I have here, Mr. Johnny Roberts here in Central and Upstate New York, that loves his Lions, and they're also going to be on Monday Night Football. So we're going to see the Lions on Monday night in Week 8. They're going to be home against the Raiders for Monday Night Football. So, you know, some of these teams get a bunch of opportunities. Some of these teams feels like, you know, they never get shown. But on Monday Night Football in Week 8, so you think about it, in the first 8 weeks, they're going to kick off the season as the first game. In Week 4, they're going to be at the Packers for Thursday Night Football. Week 8, they got Monday Night Football. So the Lions, high hopes here by the NFL that this is going to be a team to definitely watch. The Packers are going to be the next team that we're going to pick up here inside of our breakdown of the schedule. So taking a look at the Green Bay Packers, this is for the first time in a long time, a Green Bay Packers team without Aaron Rodgers, right? First time ever that we're seeing them without a Super Bowl champion. They went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and now it's Jordan Love's team. So the Green Bay Packers are going to be a new-look Green Bay Packer team. I don't think it's really going to sink in for Green Bay Packer fans until we see that first game of the season. But Jordan Love is there, backed up by Sean Clifford and Danny Etling. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are back. Christian Watson, they drafted last year, so you got him out there. And, you know, we'll see. We'll see with this Packers team. Jair Alexander, who I covered in college, got him on the defensive side of the ball. So, you know, coming out of Louisville, and I can't believe he's been in the league more than half a decade. That's insane to me. It makes me feel like I'm 100 years old because I remember covering him in college and just thinking about that, you know, feeling like it was a year or two ago. So now with Thursday Night Football, as I had mentioned with the Lions, we're going to get to see the Packers at home on Thursday Night Football. And so I'll mention this again for you Packers fans that are out there. So Thursday Night Football in Week 4, we're going to see the Packers. So we will get to see who the Packers are now and what they look like now with Jordan Love. So that'll be a game to put on your calendar and keep on your calendar here. And I know there's a lot of Green Bay fans, a lot of cheeseheads around the world. We're going to see Kansas City and Green Bay play in Week 13 on Sunday Night Football. So we'll see that one as well. So we have Sunday Night Football, Chiefs and Packers, and so that's going to be at home for the Packers. So you got another home game. So not only are you playing on Sunday night and Thursday Night Football, but you're playing those games at home, which is a positive here, and that's going to be in Week 13 up against the Kansas City Chiefs. And we got the Green Bay Packers at Week 17 on New Year's Eve going on the road to the Vikings, and so we're going to see that game on Sunday Night Football as well, and that's going to be in Week 17. So some big games coming up here for the Green Bay Packers as far as your primetime games. Now, so without Aaron Rodgers, still getting to see them in primetime, and we will see them on Monday Night Football as well. So we're going to see them on Monday Night Football up against the Raiders. That game's going to be on the road, and that's in Week 5. So in Week 5 at the Raiders, which I'm just going to put Raid here as we have smaller space, but at the Raiders, and that game is going to be Week 5 Monday Night Football for Week 5. So that's another one to look at here for Green Bay. So sans their Super Bowl champion MVP quarterback, we're still going to get it. And then in Week 14, we get a doubleheader for Monday Night Football, and they're going to be a part of that doubleheader. So in Week 14, the Packers are going to be at the Giants in Monday Night Football. And so that'll be for Week 14 here. So you got, I don't know how that happened. So you got a Monday Night Football, a Monday Night Football, a Thursday Night Football, and 2 Sunday Night Footballs. The Packers 5 primetime games without Aaron Rodgers. So Jordan Love is definitely going to have to learn how to play quickly, right, within all of this. So it'll be great to see, and definitely excited for that. So a lot of good things coming up here for the Green Bay Packers and their opportunity to showcase themselves and showcase where they can go from here as they continue on their season. The next one that we have to take a look at here as we continue on the conversation is to look at the Minnesota Vikings, the last team here inside of the NFC North as we cover this. And so for the Vikings, their schedule and what they got going on, the Minnesota Vikings, again, this is a team where we're asking ourselves the questions, where are they going to be, right? Who is this team going to be now? You got Justin Jefferson, who's a talent, right? He's one of the best receivers in the NFL. To some people, considered the best. You have Kirk Cousins still as your quarterback. You have Dalvin Cook. You have Alexander Madison, who's filled in for him good at times. You got Jordan Addison, who they drafted from USC via Pitt, who I covered in college. You got T.J. Hawkinson back again, right? They bring in Josh Oliver, who's bounced around since he was drafted by the Jaguars. So to me, you got the talent, but are they going to be able to hold up their end of the bargain here for the Minnesota Vikings and give us something that we want to watch? Give the fans something that they want to see. Because this season for the Minnesota Vikings, I think, is going to be telling, because the Minnesota Vikings have the talent, but who is going to be their quarterback, right? Who's going to be their team leader from here on out? Who's going to be the guy that they can lean on, rely on, and have faith is going to bring them to the promised land? Do they continue to roll and rock with the man, Kirk Cousins, or do they move on to somebody else? And I think that's a question that's going to get answered soon. And we'll see, what's going to go on from here. But that's, looking at the Vikings, behind them you got Nick Mullins. So, Minnesota, they have the talent, but we don't see them get over the hump. But they're going to have in week 2, they're going to be at the Eagles. So you talk about getting over the hump. Well, they got to play the Eagles on Thursday Night Football in week 2. So that's a huge game off the jump for the Vikings. And being able to be on Thursday Night Football is a blessing for them as well. And then, we look at the rest of their schedule this season, and they're going to be on Sunday Night Football up against the Denver Broncos, believe it or not. So Sunday Night Football, they're going to be on the road for this one too. So playing these primetime games on the road, they're going to be at the Broncos for Sunday Night Football in Week 11. And that's another game Minnesota's going to have to look at here as far as, and then, like I said, the Green Bay Packers, Week 17, New Year's Eve. That's going to be a home game. So they'll be playing at home against the Pack on Sunday Night Football in Week 17. So you have the opportunity here to have a bunch of games to showcase yourself to the world. And again, how important these games are, right? To have a New Year's Eve game, to have 2 Sunday Night Football games and a Thursday Night Football game. And then when we look at the Monday night schedule right now, they will be Week 7 at home against the San Francisco 49ers. So we look at Week 7, we pull up the Niners here at home. This is going to be Monday Night Football for Week 7. So you got another primetime game for the Minnesota Vikings that they're going to get to play in front of everybody. Then in Week 12, you have the Chicago Bears game that we had talked about. So you got the Bears here on Monday Night Football up against the Vikings for Week 12. The Vikings getting a ton of primetime. 5 primetime games. And getting on Thursday night, Sunday night, and Monday Night Football. Playing three of the 5 at home. That's big. That's huge. And based on our breakdown today, bringing you this NFL schedule breakdown, we've gotten through the NFC as we're going to be doing the NFC South now. So we've gotten through that portion of it. So we're going to save the AFC for tomorrow. and we'll talk about the AFC tomorrow as we keep with the NFC, because I don't want to rush us through this. So the NFC South, we'll start with the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Bergeron from Syracuse will be hopefully blocking there on the offensive line as a starter, as they traded up to get him in the second round. So as we take a look at the 2023-24 NFL schedule breakdown, we're going to finish off with the NFC today and with the Falcons. And so the Falcons, you're looking at what games do they have that are going to be primetime games. They're not going to be featured on Thursday Night Football this season, so they do not have that opportunity. Now, I did circle their Cardinals game earlier, as I had mentioned, because it's two Syracuse players, Garrett Williams and Matt Bergeron, going to be going up against each other, with Garrett Williams being drafted in the third round by the Arizona Cardinals. So that's something to look to. And, but as far as the primetime feel for the Atlanta Falcons, not getting that love this year, right? Because Atlanta has been going through, I knew Matt Ryan was going to be not for long, and so to see him move on from there, I wasn't completely surprised. Maybe it was a little bit more premature than I thought. Maybe, for me, I within the next couple seasons, I had said that in the past, but for the Falcons, they have no Thursday night, Sunday night, or Monday Night Football. None of those games. So when we look at their schedule and say, okay, they're not going to be in prime time, what games do you circle? This is another team of where are they going to be? Who are they going to be? You look at their depth chart right now, my guy Desmond Ridder from the Cincinnati Bearcats, covered him for years. He's their quarterback. Bijan Robinson, they drafted, I believe, 8th overall, and I picked them to draft Bijan Robinson. And so you got Bijan and Tyler Algier, and you still have Cordero Patterson. So I like the backfield. You got Drake London. You got to get another guy there. They got Scotty Miller, though, from Tampa Bay, so we'll see what happens with that. And you have Kyle Pitts. So you have weapons here. You definitely have weapons. Matt Bergeron could fit in there, jump into guard, play right away. Calais Campbell, my guy from the Jaguars, he's there now, who went over to Baltimore after leaving Jacksonville. You got Bud Dupree on the defensive side as well. So Grady Jarrett, I'm hoping for Atlanta to have an uptick, but they have none of these games on primetime. So I told you the game that I circled is their game that is going to be on November 12th, late in their season. And so that is going to be their 10th game of the season, and I'll mention it here again, at the Cardinals, because that game is going to be their 10th game, and it's the SU. God willing, they're both healthy and playing, Garrett Williams and Matt Bergeron. We're going to see the SU matchup. But the Falcons here, nothing on primetime. So, sad for them, but it's where we're at. So with that being said, we're going to continue our schedule breakdown tomorrow with the AFC, as I want to take my time here and really hone in on each of these teams, as you've seen me break down who has Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night games, who's playing on holidays, and we're doing it by team so that every single one of you fans around the world can hear their team mentioned on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora as we break down the schedule. So we're going to take a step aside for a fast break. We'll be back momentarily after breaking down the NFC side of the NFL schedule. We'll break down the AFC tomorrow, and we'll get into our conversation with Dave Pasiak today, right after this fast break inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', bringing up the NBA playoffs as we switch from the field to the court right after this.
Avicolli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicolli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicolli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday
Thursday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And, of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicollis.com. That's myavicollis.com.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. This is a special message from 317 at Montgomery restaurant owner Joel Carpenter. Open Tuesday through Saturday for your dining pleasure on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York.
We wanted to be a part of the resurgence of Syracuse. We saw a lot of money being put into bringing people back downtown and thought that, we'd like to be a part of that. I love putting together a good dish where people see it first, they fall in love with it, and then it tastes just as good as it looks. We want to provide the best food in Syracuse that we possibly can, and we want you to leave here talking to your family, your friends about what you had to eat first and foremost, but also our service, and to walk out feeling like you're part of our family. I work out in the front of the house a lot, and I love walking to every single table, asking them how everything is, and people looking at me and smiling and saying, this is the most amazing short rib I've ever had. This is the most amazing filet I've ever had. And Donna is great. Sarah's amazing. Thank you for coming over and talking to us. And then them just being truly happy for the experience that they've gotten.
317 at Montgomery Restaurant, part of the fabric of downtown Syracuse, located on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York. Open Tuesday through Saturday for a unique and memorable dining experience. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, inside of a fantastic week of broadcasts here. Proud to be here with you, where sports meets that thing called life. Can't thank you enough for being a part of the show every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Breaking down the NFL schedule earlier on here in hour number 1, as we gave you the NFC side of things, breaking down the NFL from the East, West, North, and South division, so that every single fan of an NFC team was going to hear their team called here, and excited to do that for you. Excited to continue with the AFC tomorrow as we break down that schedule and games we're looking forward to, those primetime games and every every one of the great things that are coming up here. So a lot of good stuff here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. And as we've been doing for many years, Dave Pasiak joining me here for NBA playoff talk, really NBA talk in general during the season, and definitely for the NBA playoffs. So Dave has not only been here with me to talk NBA playoffs, but we've done most of it on Tuesdays. So here we are on a Tuesday in hour number 2. We're going to bring in the longtime head coach as well as analyst of the beautiful game of basketball, Mr. Pasiak. How we doing?
Great, Dan. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, and I got to start things off. I kind of have to just rip the Band-Aid, I guess. But I'm sad for you that we're sitting here this morning in conversation about, the Philadelphia 76ers have not moved forward. I'm happy for my grandfather, and I'm happy for my aunts, and I'm happy for my buddy Jerry, but at the same time, I'm feeling the pain for you that this NBA playoff move to the conference finals is not going to include the Philadelphia 76ers, which are your favorite team. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I know we were talking about a little bit off the air.
Yeah, it was, like I told you off the air, I think Philly really blew it by not taking care of business in Game 6. I mean, everything was set up for them. 3-2 lead, playing at home. Tatum was awful in the first 3 quarters of that game, and yet Philly, they fell behind early. Down something like 15-3 right out of the gate. Gave Boston life and allowed them to stay in the game despite Tatum really having a miserable shooting night for the first portion of that game. Got back in it, and then 2-point lead with around 5 minutes to go, and just awful down the stretch of that game. Meanwhile, Tatum came to life in the fourth quarter, and the Sixers with the game on the line, just were not good the last 5 minutes. And then you go ahead to Game 7 on Sunday, and Tatum had a career game, one of the all-time great Game 7 performances in the NBA. Meanwhile, Embiid and James Harden, you got to call it the way it is, came up small. And I think the whole kind of how the Sixers finished, I think the Sixers and Philly fans owe Brett Brown an apology, because when they dumped him a few years back, Doc Rivers was supposed to be the guy that could take Philadelphia to that next step, and they really haven't come any closer under Doc than he ever did under Brett Brown. So, I'd be very surprised if when next season rolls around, Doc Rivers is still coaching the Sixers, especially given the way in the NBA right now that when next season rolls around, Doc Rivers is still coaching the Sixers, especially between Budenholzer and Monty Williams and Nick Nurse. I mean, there are some high-level coaches available right now, and I also think Mazzulla has gotten a lot of heat with the Celtics, but I think he really proved his mettle late in that series. And then you look at what Darvin Ham's doing with the Lakers. So, I think that I would be very, very surprised if Doc's back. I think that kind of the way the wind's blowing these days in the NBA, I think that probably is a move that the Sixers are going to be making in the next few days.
Yeah, and that's the tough part of this, Dave. Like you said, seeing Budenholzer and what happened with him with the Bucks, and then Monty Williams with the Phoenix Suns. I mean, we're talking about 2 strong teams, good caliber teams. Teams that people thought could win another championship, and now, like you said, with Doc Rivers and the Sixers. What's going on in the NBA? I mean, is this just sports? Because we see it in college football all the time, and you'll see it in the NFL, to a certain extent. But I mean, is this the world we live in, that you can make it to the playoffs? You could be one of those teams in the NBA that I mean, in Milwaukee's case, you won a championship under that coach. You're the number 1 seed. Phoenix's case, you make a trade during the season. You got a great opportunity to do some great things. The 76ers, a team that has come out of the basement that they were in a decade or so ago. So, I mean, if we're getting rid of these coaches, what's happening? What is the NBA today? And is the NBA just a reflection of sports that, you here today, gone tomorrow, what have you done for me lately on steroids, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unique to the NBA by any stretch. I think you see it across sports, professional sports certainly, and you're really starting to see it in major college sports, where one bad stretch, one bad season, and in professional sports, the economics of it are. If it's not going well, the easy move is to replace the head coach. And a lot of times, teams that struggle, it's personnel related as much as it is head coach related, or more in the NBA. Or any sport, any team sport really. But it's from a front office standpoint, they're not usually going to point the finger back at themselves, the general manager or VP of basketball operations or whatever the title might be. So, they're not going to kind of self-inflict blame. So the easy person to point the finger at is the head coach, because you're not going to, it's not that easy to flip the roster. So, typically that's when things don't live up to expectations. It's the coach that takes the fall for it. The thing that's been crazy in this cycle in the NBA is like how quickly coaches have fallen out of favor. You look at, I think it's, Budenholzer had the best record in the league 3 out of his 5 years, and 3 of the last 4 championship coaches and 5 of the last 6, like discounting Mike Brown this year. But if you, prior to this year, if you look at 5 of the last 6 coaches of the year and 3 of the last 4 championship coaches are all out of work right now. So, that's kind of a crazy stat. I think certainly Popovich and Spoelstra, like those guys are really the exception, not the rule in professional sports. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL. Teams are very slow to make coaching changes, but I think that that has more and more become the exception instead of the norm. The norm is things go south and time to make a move.
Yeah, I mean, you said flip the coach. An easier thing to flip a coach than to flip the roster, obviously, and but where? I mean, I guess my issue is when you look at these teams, I'm saying to myself, what's the plan? What are you going to do? Do you really think there's a coach out there that's going to make all this better? That's going to be, I know Doc Rivers has had his ups and downs, and he's had a lot of longevity, though. He's goes from one place to another, and he's been able to stick around the NBA. But, with Doc, with Monty, with Budenholzer, I'm just at a loss, Dave, that I guess the question is for Phoenix, for Milwaukee, for Philadelphia, who's a better guy? Who is the next guy? If you're Philly, do you call Budenholzer? Do you call Monty Williams? I mean, is this going to be a round robin where they just kind of change jerseys type to, so to speak? I'd love to get your thoughts on that, because it's, if Monty's not good enough, then who is? If Budenholzer wins a championship and that's not good enough, I'm not saying that they're the best coaches in the NBA, but what I'm saying is if I'm a Phoenix fan and Monty, did what he did with what he had and putting this team kind of together, where next season, is where you would more so, if everybody stays together, you would see, what this team could be. But it's like, did he not do enough? Did Doc not do enough? Did Budenholzer not do enough? Who's better? Because if you're going to get rid of a coach, the question becomes, okay, well, if this is silver, what's gold? And I guess that's what I'm asking.
Well, I think if you look at recent history in the NBA, it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, people take a look at Golden State, and Mark Jackson got that team from irrelevant to to a pretty competitive level, but the organization felt like there was a ceiling there, and they replaced him with Kerr, and they've been the dominant team in the league over the last decade or so. Same thing in Toronto. I mean, Dwayne Casey had that team knocking at the doorstep every year. Organization decided they needed a different voice. They hired Nick Nurse, and they win a championship. So, I mean, you got a couple examples of those types of moves paying immediate dividends. But then you've got the flip side of it too. You've got Philly's a good example. I mean, Brett Brown shepherded that team and fell on the sword during the whole process business, got the team to a very competitive level, and organization felt like they needed to make a move to get them over the top, and they hired Doc Rivers, and really the team is no closer, and you could argue farther away, but certainly no closer to winning the championship than they were under Brett Brown. So it's kind of a mixed bag thing. I do think one of the things in professional sports, in college athletics, major college athletics, you've got players are constantly cycling in and out. I mean, it was a 4-year. You could say you turn your roster over every 4 years now with NIL and the transfer portal and all that. Like, major college basketball and football teams, they're flipping most of the roster within a year or two in a lot of instances. So I think the voice in the locker room doesn't get old because of the roster turnover. I think in the NBA or Major League Baseball, the NFL, hockey, whatever, where the rosters don't necessarily turn over, especially on the better teams, where they have a core that's in place for a period of time. Sometimes I think it can be a matter of just a different voice in the locker room needs to be heard, or at least the organizations feel that way. So I think that factors in to those kind of decisions. You look at the Phoenix thing. You get this situation too, where you have new ownership. It's not the owner and not the front office that hired Monty Williams. So sometimes it's as simple as they want their own guy in there. Yeah. And you see that. I mean, that's not unique to sports. I mean, you see that in business. New management team comes in. New CEO wants their own people in upper management and middle management. You see it in education. New superintendent comes into a school, they want a new high school principal. So it's not a thing that when it's a changeover in ownership or a changeover in management, sometimes it's as simple as they want their own person in there. So thing that's unique in sports, I think, and in the NBA and I think certainly with quarterbacks in football, I think factor into that. The star players in general, but especially the quarterback position. But in the NBA, I think there's so few. It's such a star-driven sport, and there's only 5 guys on the court, and the impact of the star player is so much that I think that there's, that influences those decisions on occasion as well. Sometimes in case, you can go all the way back to Magic Johnson getting Paul Westhead fired as coach of the Lakers years and years ago. I think the voice of the star player, I think, is greatest in the NBA because of the influence they have on the team and on the game and whatnot. So that's another little piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, speaking here with Dave Pasiak, longtime basketball head coach and analyst, as we take a deeper dive into these coaching changes and everything that's going on with them. Dave, do you like the former NBA player as the coach now? The opportunity for a guy, and maybe a guy who didn't have coaching experience. I saw something about Toronto Raptors and JJ Redick, but when you look at today's NBA, do you like the former player, maybe in more recent history, or maybe somebody that was big in the 90s and whatnot? Do you like seeing these players who essentially, for me, I mean, the players whose cards I collected, seeing them, resurface here as an NBA head coach. What are your thoughts on the, former player stepping into that role and some of them without prior experience?
Well, I think, again, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but I think that, if you look back historically, it's kind of an interesting phenomenon that some of the, the great player as a head coach, more times than not in NBA history, hasn't been all that successful. And I think a little piece of that is the great player sometimes has trouble identifying with how hard it is for the average player. But I think that, having experience in the NBA, like Udoka taking over in Boston a year ago, Darvin Ham this year with the Lakers. I think those guys who had, had been in the league as an assistant, whether they came up as an assistant, or whether they're a former player like a Darvin Ham that then got into the coaching ranks. I think the track record and the preparation for those guys is pretty good. I think you contrast that with Steve Nash, who, as a player, you can argue one of the smartest and best on-court players in terms of seeing the game and understanding the game, maybe in history of the league. And he really struggled as a head coach because of minimal experience on an NBA bench prior to taking over the Nets, and that obviously didn't end well. So I think the former player or the experienced assistant in the league, I think, has much better chance of success than the people, because of their love for college basketball and whatnot. I think people see college coaches going to the NBA. That track record is not all that great. Brad Stevens, people love Brad Stevens, and I've always been a Brad Stevens guy. People were ready to anoint him as the best coach in the NBA before he had coached 10 games, and he did a solid job with the Celtics. But since he's moved into the front office, you can argue that the team has been better under Udoka and Mazzola than it was under Brad Stevens. So, and I think the college guy with no pro experience, if you look back historically, results have been very, very mixed on that front. So I do think the former player, the people that understand the league, the former player, the experienced assistant, I think those guys definitely have an advantage over the former player that steps into a head coaching role with minimal experience, or the college guy coming into the pro game for the first time.
Yeah, and it's just, to me, it's an inch, and like you said, it's one of those things that it is a mixed bag, right? Because there's some people work out, some people don't. Some people take that spin of the wheel, and other ones will stay more close to the vest. The thing is that obviously times are changing, in the sense of, have we seen coaches recycled like underwear at times? Yeah, but it feels like now you win a championship and you're still not safe, and that to me has been an interesting situation. Now, there's different names that have come up with the Toronto Raptors, my Raptors, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, because obviously Becky Hammon comes up, her name comes up these last couple of years, and there's that name that's been there. There's been, Monty Williams could fit there to come from Phoenix and go to Toronto. I've heard JJ Redick. I've heard kind of a little bit of everything, and it's been a mixed bag. What are your thoughts in Toronto? What do they need? Going from Dwayne Casey, who I was surprised they let go, to taking the guy under him and moving him into the next chair, Nick Nurse, and winning a championship, which I did not expect, to now moving forward from Nick Nurse, who won a championship with the Raptors, their only championship back in 2019. Now it's who's the next guy going to be, or woman, with Becky's name being brought up. So I'd love to get your thoughts on Toronto.
Well, you certainly threw out quite the mixed bag of, potential candidates.
It's so strange, Dave. There's so many. It's like I don't get the direction of Toronto, and they've done this to me before with coaching and with player personnel, where they'll make a move, the next one's going to be, and I don't know if they know what the next one's going to be, but I mean, they've kind of fallen into some really good coaches being available. I just don't want this to be a reset and a reboot, and here goes Toronto for the next decade trying to refigure everything out again.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a million names thrown out there with the Raptors because it's a little bit different situation than like the Bucks or the Suns or potentially the Sixers, where you've got a team that's is positioned for a championship run in the here and now. So you wonder whether a job like Toronto is as appealing to a guy like a Monty Williams or a Budenholzer. Frank Vogel is out there, who's a championship coach, obviously. So you wonder if those guys want to take on a little bit more of a rebuild in Toronto. Toronto to me feels like the kind of job that goes to an assistant, getting their first crack at being a head coach. I think the Becky Hammon thing is interesting because certainly she is highly regarded in NBA circles and sat on an NBA bench. But now she's got head coaching experience in WNBA under her belt. You just hope that if there's a little bit in sports about if you can't be good, at least be interesting. So a hire like a Becky Hammon, you just hope that ultimately, if they go that direction, it would be because they feel she's the best person for that job, and not just a novelty hire to gain some attention for the franchise. She certainly has the resume and the track record that you would think they would take her seriously as a candidate, though. But the job in general, to me, it feels like the kind of job that I'll tell you one guy that I think would be an interesting candidate whose name has been bounced around there, and I think is really should be on the list of most of these job openings is Kenny Atkinson. Because I think when I always thought he did a great job with taking a team and maximizing them in the Nets prior to them making the run with Kyrie and Durant and whatnot, and bringing in Steve Nash. Kenny Atkinson was also an out. I think that's a guy that would be a good fit in a place like Toronto that's trying to kind of get themselves back into that playoff and championship conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, there's been so many names thrown out, and people put up stuff, and some people put up things just to talk about it, and it's never going to happen, and they just want to have the conversation. But I've been a fan since they became a team, since their logo came out in 1994 before they came in 1995. So, I'm excited about the future, but at the same time, I'm tired of this. They're kind of there, but they're kind of not there, and then they go find somebody. Dave, I look back at these coaches. I look back at the list of coaches, and there's times where I will sit here and say to myself, I don't even remember that person being a coach on the team. And there's just been like some eras where you're like, did that even happen? So with Toronto, I want it to be a good move. You got the guys out there now that know what it's like to win a championship. Budenholzer knows what it's like to go up against Toronto in big time games, right? So you have that, and Monty's been coaching stars, these big time stars. Toronto has to make moves. That's the thing. Whatever coach comes in, whatever's going on, when you look at the Toronto Raptors and you look at their front office, they have to make moves. They came into this season, before the season even started, I might have said it to you, I definitely said it publicly. I said they're missing 2 pieces. They could be missing 3 pieces, but they were missing somebody, probably 2, that were going to get them over the hump. Even if they made it to the playoffs, I didn't expect them to go anywhere. I didn't expect them to win a championship because they were missing too much. I like DeMar DeRozan. I wish they won a championship with him. I love that they did it with Kawhi Leonard. But after that, they don't have it. Siakam is not the answer. Fred VanVleet is not the answer. Kyle Lowry, when he was there, wasn't the answer. They're part of the answer, but they're not the answer. And where I get frustrated as a Raptors fan is that they don't seem to be advantageous a lot in free agency or to necessarily put the money out there with players that aren't on the team to bring a guy into the team. In the draft, they're constantly giving up draft picks. They're picking toward the end of the first round many times. So they don't do it in the draft as much. Sometimes they'll make a good move, but they don't do it in the draft as much. They don't do it in free agency. And so it's not just the coach to me, it's whoever comes in. Can we be advantageous? Can they go out there and take a page from the old Yankees under Steinbrenner? And I'm not saying give crazy money, but let's go after the big guns. Let's do some moves that are going to help you right away, right now, to build a guy who's got 3 or 4 years left in him. I want to see more of them in the transaction world and in the wheeling and dealing. I don't want to see somebody sitting at the poker table constantly holding on to their cards. I want to see them face off against somebody. I want to see them put those cards down. I want to see them make somebody bluff. I don't see enough of that with Toronto, and that's what frustrates me.
Well, I think Toronto's in an interesting spot. I mean, for years, LeBron James is between them and the NBA Finals for years, and I thought the Raptors did a really good job during that era of making incremental moves to get closer without blowing the whole thing up. Yeah. But I think now they're kind of in a place where they're almost in NBA purgatory, where you're good enough to be in the conversation to maybe you squeak into the playoffs or in the play-in tournament. If you miss it, you barely miss it. So you're probably, they're in a position where they're not likely to get like the top 5 draft pick franchise-changing player, but they're not good enough to be in the championship conversation. And I mean, it's a tough place to be in the NBA, to where that's why you see teams blow it up sometimes, like the Sixers, and that was painful going through the whole process thing. Yeah. But I think the Raptors are really in danger of living in NBA purgatory for the next few years. And I think the challenge that they have specifically, you can say you want to be active in the free agent market, but I think it's like Toronto, being in Canada and being north of the border. And I think with today's NBA player, it's not necessarily on their short list of prime destinations, when you're going up against New York, Miami, LA, whatever, Boston. So I think that, the Raptors are working against that to a certain extent. If Giannis goes on the free agent market in a couple of years, I'm pretty sure Toronto is not going to be like on the top of his list of preferred destinations. So just in that sense, the Raptors, they've kind of got to pay a premium in free agency when they're competing against some other teams. And with the salary cap and cap management, they're not always in a place where they're able to do that. So I think really trying to be creative in the front office, be good. I mean, like a guy like Van Vliet, who's turned into a really good NBA player. That was a guy that they found that like nobody else thought would be at that level. I mean, the Spurs were really good for a long time of finding guys late in the first round, in the second round, European players, free agents. Like that's one of the things that let the Spurs compete at the high level of the NBA as a small market team for a lot of years. So I think for Toronto to kind of get back to that championship level, maybe they'll be able to swing for the fences with a big time free agent. But I think that's going to be very difficult in their circumstances. I think what they're really going to have to do is be better at player evaluation and player development than the typical NBA team. I think that's really going to be the key to them, avoiding kind of NBA purgatory for a while.
Yeah, I mean, that I agree, and I think the evaluation hasn't always been obviously right, and that's been a place of frustration for me. It's not that there's not talent out there. It's not that you can't figure something out and get some draft picks or what. But that's the thing that like there's so many times where I'm like I'm not even gonna watch the draft because as a broadcaster you got to keep an eye on things, and as a fan I'm like I don't even want to see it because they're either not drafting or they're drafting late or they're only drafting in the second round, and it's frustrating to me that when you talk about evaluating talent, they don't really have the opportunity so many times in the NBA draft to go and get somebody and make them their star. Have that be the guy that, if you're going to be building around something, to do that. And so I find it so important to have a balance between veteran guys that have proven themselves and young guys that have so much upside and an opportunity to really become an immediate leader. And I like having those two things come together. You look at the Golden State Warriors and people talk about, teams buying championships and this and that. The Golden State Warriors drafted those, the guys that we know, the guys that have been there, the guys that have won championships with or without other superstars on the roster, they were drafted by the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors evaluation was that good. And with Toronto, it hasn't been that they've necessarily drafted. A lot of the guys that they drafted, they let go of. They, Vince Carter and that, dirty divorce, and Damon Stoudemire and letting him go after he was Rookie of the Year and having him for a little bit. And, Marcus Camby going to the Knicks and Tracy McGrady leaving the team. They had these talented players that they didn't keep and that they would go out and get, right? You go out and you draft these guys and you bring them into your franchise and you think, all right, this is going to be the future, but it wasn't. And I love what Kawhi Leonard did. People ask me, are you a fan of Kawhi? Are you mad at Kawhi? Do you hate Kawhi? No, I don't hate Kawhi. I'm a huge fan of Kawhi Leonard. To me, he never said anything bad about Toronto. He never disrespected Toronto from what I saw. Now, I'm not on the inside looking out, but he gave Toronto an opportunity to sell him. He gave Toronto an opportunity to make their pitch. And I have no issues, no qualms with Kawhi. It's very hard in today's NBA to find a guy who's a superstar who will play like he's the guy trying to make the roster. And he did that so many times on loose balls, on getting rebounds after a guy misses a free throw, which like nobody does. And I love so many things about him that I'm going to love Kawhi, forever, barring him doing anything, terrible in humanity, I have to say that because I said I was a big Will Smith fan, and then Will Smith went out, after me being a fan of his for all these years, and he broke the invisible barrier between the viewers and the listeners and the entertainer, and Will Smith needs to apologize for that, and he hasn't done that yet. So, for me, Dave, I would love for Toronto to make the moves that they need to make. And maybe that means we need a feisty coach. A coach that's going to go in there. And, I know Doc Rivers has, won and not won and done things, but not, everything people want to do. But I feel like he could be feisty. He could go in there and he could He doesn't have to be screaming, but I think that maybe he could push a little bit in Toronto if he were to end up there. I want somebody to come in there and make the moves to say, you know what, open the bank account, make the phone call. I know we're in Toronto. I know it's Canada. I know it's different than the rest of the NBA. But there's also something beautiful about the fan base, about the community, about the support. There's something about Toronto that is so special. So what I love to do, Dave, is I love to flip the script and say, let's take all of our quote-unquote weaknesses and make them our quote-unquote strengths. Yeah, we're the only team in Canada. We have the entire nation behind this team. Not one place, not one area, one province, one state. We have the entire country behind this team. We are the representation of an entire nation. We have so much beauty. We're like New York City, but we smell better. There's a lot of things that Toronto can offer that other places can't. And I call it the New York City of Canada, but it smells better and it feels better and people can, are walking their dogs and what I look at the weaknesses of Toronto and I see them as a strength. And I see the fan base as a strength. I see Jurassic Park as a strength. And I feel like if you're getting recruited the right way and you're to me, the best way to get somebody to say yes is to take all of the things that people say are your weakness and to turn them into a strength, to find a positive in them, to flip it on somebody else. If you can make what people say are your weakest moments turn into your biggest assets, and you can somehow spin it in a way where you can find the positive in it, how do you say no to a team, an organization, or a person that's willing to say, no, watch this. Watch what I'm going to do. You see these as a weakness. Look at what I'm going to do with this as a strength. For goodness sakes, Walt Disney was told over 700 times that there would never be a year-round amusement park and that his plan was doomed to fail. 700 plus no's. And now Walt Disney's the richest dead man ever. So, I just feel like sometimes the things that might look ugly on the outside, like the swampland in Florida that was there at the time, maybe we just have to find a different way to paint it, and maybe we just need the right paintbrush.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said, but I think, the notion of playing in a different country and the exchange rate on the dollar, at the end of the day, there's a lot of economics involved too.
Yeah.
And that really, all those other things you say can be true and can be favorable, and you can still lose out on the economic piece. And I think that's a thing that the Raptors have to deal with that, every other team in the NBA doesn't at this point. So, like I said, I think they have done a good job of this by and large, at different times in their history. They've got to be a little bit more creative and a little bit smarter to stay ahead of the game a little bit.
Yeah, no, and again, obviously the economics comes down to it because of the exchange rate and all of that, and that's something that I know, again, can always be used against them. So, I feel like you have to find the strength in the relationship, and you have to build those bonds. You have to go beyond the dollar, because there are places that will give you a ton of money and treat you like garbage, and there's places that won't give you a lot of money and disrespect you, and there's those places that are going to maybe not give you all the money that LA can give you, but it's going to be a beautiful place to raise your family. So, I think you have to find the happy medium, and people that are led by money, I always feel like eventually fall off the cliff. So, we shall see. But Toronto, get advantageous. If you don't have anyone on your staff to do it, call me. I'm available. We'll work this out. I can get a little, you don't have to pay me much, but you got to pay me enough for that loony to make sense. So we'll take a step aside on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We'll come back. Dave Pasiak and I going to be breaking down the Eastern and Western Conference Finals in our final few minutes of this hour on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora right after this.
Hi, Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York, open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? This is a special message from Merritt Brady, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Watertown on 1290 Arsenal Street in Watertown, New York.
Chick-fil-A for me has always been about the people. I think it starts with the strength and leadership of the Cathy family. It's just amazing to see a family-run business reach the altitude that they have. Second mile service is something that we embodied at my previous business, and the ability to make people feel like they're the only person at your establishment, that you are there to serve them that day and looking for those extra ways to make them happy, to anticipate what they need next is what makes me tick. And I'm going to have so many opportunities at Chick-fil-A to do that. It's one of my favorite things to eat in the world. My favorite application question or interview question when I'm interviewing is when I get to, have you ever eaten at Chick-fil-A? And a smile hits both their ears. You know, they can't even answer the question for a second. And when I see that, it's like, man, that's going to be a great hire. They already get it. They already feel it. They already know that we're different. The Chick-fil-A experience, it's a real thing. And then, of course, just our generosity and community involvement and making a positive impact in the lives of our team members, our guests, and the community in general, I think is really the secret sauce.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Happy to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And we're hanging out here with Dave Pasiak as we do throughout the NBA playoffs. And typically on Tuesdays in hour number 2 from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So people are creatures of habit, so we try to make a habit of having Dave here with us in the second hour on Tuesdays on Wake Up Call. And we're going to continue the conversation inside of the NBA as we take a look at the conference finals. So, Dave, let's start with how we got there. In the conference semifinals, every single series went at least 6 games of the 7 that could be allotted to them. Miami, 6 games, won 4-2. Philadelphia and Boston won in 7 games, 4-3. Denver and Phoenix. Denver won 4 games to 2 in 6, and the Lakers won in 6, 4 games to 2. Your thoughts on the fact that we got at least 6, if not 7, in these series? Just how good these conference semifinals were, or maybe you have a different thought. Maybe you didn't think some of them were that good.
Well, I think they were obviously Sixers Celtics. We talked a little bit about before, and that went 7. So I mean, you got the whole Game 7 thing. I felt like Miami and the Lakers, and this is strange to say because you got a 7 seed and 8 seed, but it felt like when they won when they went up in the series, when they won the opening game, it really felt, those whole series felt like those teams were in control. You know, and they were both at 3-1, and the home team held serve to make it 3-2. So I mean, I thought there was you know, good basketball, fun to watch LeBron and Curry go at it. And, you know, the Knicks kind of were rejuvenated this year. You know, so I think there were fun aspects to those series. But I felt like in both those cases, I thought the Heat and the Lakers, it just felt like they were the better teams and in control in those series. I thought Phoenix and Denver was an exceptionally high-level series through 5 games. I really thought, the home court seemed to make a big difference. The Nuggets, I think with the altitude, maybe the home court advantage maybe means more to Denver than any other team in the league. I really thought that series, was being played at a high level. And then I was shocked at the way Game 6 turned out. Like the fact that Denver had their way so easily in Game 6 in Phoenix. That was a series that I thought had a great chance of the home team hold and serve every game of the series. If you had said going in which one's the most likely to go 7, I would have picked that series. So, I thought that series delivered for 5 games, and then, when Denver closed it out in Game 6, Phoenix laid an egg out. And that probably, as much as anything, led to Monty Williams' demise. So, in terms of the matchups now, I think Lakers-Denver is a really fascinating series. Yeah. I think Miami-Boston, you got it between the home court and, been a better team over the course of the season. You have to give Boston the edge in that series. But I think Miami has a legitimate shot of getting through that as well. And I think Game 1 of that series is, I think that's a huge opportunity for Miami, because Boston's coming off the emotional 7 games, came from behind to win that series, and that's been Miami's MO earlier in the playoffs: win Game 1, and then they're in the driver's seat the rest of the series, and it kind of feels like it could go in that direction. This time around as well.
Yeah, I think the hard part, and we'll break it down, as we move forward in the coming weeks here, because I want to keep the focus on where we're at. But just a quick note here for Phoenix: how are they built for the future? We'll talk about it in the coming weeks, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it because, I'm happy for Denver. I'm really proud of Denver, and at the same time, I'm kind of sad that this Phoenix project, and it's already going to have a new coach, but I'm kind of sad that this Phoenix project isn't continuing this year.
Well, I think Phoenix, you go all the way back to the bubble. And if you remember, Phoenix went unbeaten in the bubble and still just missed out on the playoffs. Yep. But that was kind of, that was like the impetus and the spark plug. And you knew that they had something building there. And they carried that into the next season. And, so I think Phoenix was like really on a good trajectory to be medium to long term, like a factor in the league. You had a veteran guy on the backside in Chris Paul, but you had Booker, an emerging star, and Ayton, and good parts around that. I think that they mortgaged a little bit of that to go all in to win now with Durant. And they really had limited. Durant, like the biggest thing with him is health and being able to stay on the floor, because the guy is still one of the best players on the planet. But they really only had, I think they only had him on the floor for something like 8 regular season games. So they really never, never had the chance to kind of fully integrate, fully get comfortable with him and Booker. And I think the key with them right now, and if you read between the lines, I think Monty Williams' handling of Ayton and their relationship probably had quite a bit to do with Monty getting fired. I think where they go with Ayton, I think, is going to be a key thing for them. And regardless, they've got, the 2 superstar players. Booker, I think, has really solidified himself as being one of the elite players in the NBA. I've really been high on him for a while now, and I think his performance this year in this postseason, I think, has solidified that. But I think they're they kind of got to figure it out in the same sense that the Lakers did. And I think what the Lakers did this year to be able to retool their team to the extent that they did during the regular season and figure it all out by playoff time, I think is a really remarkable thing and something that maybe doesn't get enough credit or enough attention. But I think the Suns are kind of in a similar position as the Lakers. They've got the two great players in Booker and Durant, and how are they going to tool that? Like, I thought they were one of the teams I thought had a chance to win a championship going into the playoffs. So I don't, part of it's going to be what do they do with the head coach? Part of it's going to be what do they do with Ayton? And then the remaining piece of the puzzle, what can they put around Durant and Booker to give them a little bit more depth and a little bit more of a supporting cast?
Yeah, and again, with all these changes that are coming, hopefully it'll work out. I mean, I was excited to see what they could do. But in the same respect, I'm excited for Denver because I don't think Denver was given a lot of respect. They're the number 1 seed in the West, yet I feel like people were talking about everybody else, talking about Phoenix, talking about Memphis, talking about Golden State, talking about the Lakers, talking about Sacramento, some conversation on the Clippers here and there. And not speaking enough about Denver, just kind of thinking like, hey, they're gonna they'll be all right. They'll probably make it to a certain distance and that's it. But to see Denver where they are right now, I'm excited. I said it over and over again. If you let LeBron into the playoffs, don't be surprised if he makes you pay for that. And here we are. So we're looking at the East. We're looking at the West, and I would love to make these the ingredients to success to round out today's show. Proudly presented by the wonderful team at Avicolli's. Open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. Drink responsibly as always. 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York. Down the road from Liverpool High School, right where Route 57 and Wetzel Road cross each other. You'll find Avicolli's indoor and outdoor seating, a fine dining side, the pizza casual side, the bar. So many great things. And we appreciate you going over there for lunch, dinner, and drinks. So with that being said, the ingredients to success, Mr. Pasiak, we'll start in the East with Miami and Boston. Give me the ingredients to success and how you break down this matchup, which we will be seeing here start off tomorrow, May 17th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TNT.
Yeah, well, I think the ingredients to all 4 teams, before we get into this specifically, number 1 is health. You get your star guys got to stay healthy and on the court. I think a significant injury to any one of those 4 teams changes the whole series. But specific to Celtics and Heat, I think for Miami, I think they need to grab one of the first 2 games in Boston. I think Jimmy Butler, we need to continue to see playoff Jimmy, and rely on the Heat culture. They've got the edge in championship DNA. They've got the edge in championship coaching. So I think they need to lean on that. In terms of Boston, I think Tatum and Brown need to continue to play at a high level. And I think the Celtics, they've had stretches in this postseason where things have kind of gone awry and they've looked really bad in specific games or specific stretches of games. So I think for Boston, I think they need to find a level of consistency that they haven't had, start to finish in the postseason. So I think that would be the key ingredients, I would say, in that series.
And then as we switch to the West, which we'll see start tonight, the Lakers at the Nuggets at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. What would be your ingredients to success for the Western Conference? And I know you said overall, and I agree with you completely, health of these players, my goodness. I mean, I feel like back in the day, guys would be playing with like a broken ankle bleeding on the floor. And now it seems like, we're getting a conversation almost every series or, it's just, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, what guy's out tonight? Oh, this guy's sitting on Tuesday, and it's becomes a chess game of trying to navigate around these injuries. So I do agree with you on that being the main ingredient to success. Lakers going up against the Nuggets,
trying to navigate around these
injuries. We're going to see this. So I do agree with you on that being tonight. Once again on ESPN, your thoughts?
I think Lakers side, I think it's not as critical that they break through in the first two games as it is for the Heat in the East, but I think it would certainly behoove them if they could get a split out of Denver. I think their ingredient is being able to deal with the altitude, and also the other key ingredient for them is how their young guys continue to play free and easy, as long as the moment doesn't become too big for them. And then the third thing for the Lakers, I think Anthony Davis needs to really be assertive offensively and engage Jokic and force Jokic to defend. That's like people say the best thing about Denver is Jokic's offense, and the worst thing sometimes is Jokic's defense. I think you have to, for the Lakers, I think that Anthony Davis, and the Lakers in general, I think need to force Jokic to work on that end of the floor. I think on the Denver side, I think Jamal Murray needs to really play at a high level for them. I think the Nuggets certainly, I think they've got a kind of a much more balanced team than Lakers. Yeah. But I think Murray needs to establish himself as like that second go-to guy, which he has at times, in the past, and in this playoffs and in the past. They need to keep Jokic on the floor, out of foul trouble, and on the floor. And I think Denver needs to take advantage and capitalize on the home court. I think they need to, they've got they're acclimated to the altitude more than any team they're going to play in the playoffs. And I think when you got a guy like LeBron, who's, has as much wear on his body as he has over 20 years, and deep playoff runs every year. So it's not just playing 20 seasons in the NBA. It's also playing 20 seasons plus a deep postseason run, plus USA basketball and all the things that the guy's done over. He's probably got 25 years of wear on his body. So I think for Denver, they need to capitalize on the altitude and hold serve on their home court and force the Lakers to be uncomfortable in that environment.
Yeah. Yeah, and you talk about that all the time, the altitude and what that could be for, a team and just discussing the reality of that, how it's just different in Denver, Colorado. So we shall see what's coming up. But the good thing about it is we don't have to wait that much longer. A few hours today for the Western Conference Finals to start, and tomorrow the Eastern Conference Finals will start. We have 4 teams left, and Dave and I will be talking about it all the way through. Mr. Pasiak for the ingredients to success, proudly presented by Avicolli's, that you broke down so beautifully, as well as the talk about the conference finals and the curveballs that I threw you with jumping on that Toronto Raptor conversation. I cannot appreciate you enough. Thank you for that, and I guess I owe you a drink since I didn't tell you we were talking about Toronto today.
No problem there. Was good conversation. The one thing we didn't even touch on, which might impact the league as much as anything, the draft lottery's coming up. So whoever gets that number one ping pong ball, certainly that could change the whole trajectory of that franchise. So didn't even get to that.
Yeah, and so the draft coming up here, and here's the thing about the draft and the combine and every little bit of it here. So a quick note for everyone. The lottery, I feel like if you have the most balls in the lottery, you're not going to get it. That typically is what seems to happen here, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited about, the draft lottery. Dave, where do you kind of fall in the world of the draft lottery? Like, do you sit and watch it? Is it something that, is, like you said, I mean, whatever happens, it can change a team overnight, potentially, if they make the right pick with whatever they get. But it's an exciting event. I know I like to be around it. I know, the NHL has their lottery as well. And so I've seen the excitement of what this can be. And I love it, but I'd love to get your take on it. It's going to be held tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. And right now, just so people know this, as far as probability goes, here are the teams that are a part of this. So the teams that will participate, Detroit has a lottery, the probability of 14% chance of getting the number one pick. Houston has a 14% chance. San Antonio has a 14% chance. Charlotte 12.5, Portland 10.5, Orlando 9, Indiana 6.8, Washington 6.7, Utah 4.5, Dallas 3.0, Chicago 1.8, Oklahoma City 1.7, Toronto 1.0, and New Orleans 0.5. So the Toronto Raptors have a shot of getting the number one pick. What are your thoughts on the lottery tonight?
Well, I think if your Raptors get the number one pick, they'll draft Wembanyama, and all that discussion we had about them having a franchise player might be totally irrelevant.
Yes,
because if you believe all the pundits, he's the surefire number one pick. So I think in this draft, at least, it feels like there's quite a bit of intrigue just because whoever ends up with that top pick. If you believe all the reports and the pundits and everything, it could be a franchise-changing pick for that team.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. If we're here in that situation, then Dave will get a text message from me tonight as to how I feel with what happens here. But yes, the lottery, and I apologize for not mentioning. I appreciate that you made a note here. We got in on everything else, but the lottery tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. I will be watching it, and I will be hoping and praying that it goes the way that it's gone in the past, which is that the atypical team that has the lower probability gets the higher pick. So let's go Toronto for the number one pick, and let's change the franchise tonight in the most positive sense. So with that being said, Mr. Pasiak, I appreciate you as always, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Sounds good, Dan. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Goodbye.
That coming from Dave Pasiak one more time here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. We'll take our final step aside of the day. Wrap the show up right after this. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Proud to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. We appreciate you for connecting with us. You can obviously find us on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, MixLR, Player FM, Podbean, Podfind, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, and others just by searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or one word, Wake Up Call DT. A big Thanks to our incredible partners in Central and Upstate New York, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Mother's Cupboard, where I feature my exclusive breakfast sandwich, open 7 days a week and available to you every single day from open at 6 a.m. to close at 1:30 p.m. You could get the Cuse Mick Mother. Do not miss out on that. It is a fantastic sandwich, bacon, egg, and cheese inside of 2 pieces of French toast with cinnamon and sugar on top of it. You can cut it up and eat it with syrup, or you can pick it up and eat it like a sandwich. So make sure you go out and get that for yourself today, exclusively at Mother's Cupboard on 3709 James Street in Syracuse, New York. Big time shout out to Canine Campground Dog Boarding, one of the only places I trust with besides my mom and my dad, the only place I trust with Miss Lillian. So make sure you make your way over to Canine Campground Dog Boarding and call them up if you need a spot, because the spots end quickly. Chick-fil-A Cicero, Chick-fil-A Clay, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, daily care for your dog, owned by the same ownership, Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding. 2 fantastic places across from BJ's off of Bridge Street in East Syracuse, the places to go for short and long-term care for your furry-loving friends. PB&J's, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Great Lakes Honda City, Pizza Man, Chick-fil-A Watertown, Avicolli's, and of course we're proud to be the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It is Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call. AD and DT coming to you every first and third Wednesday of each month with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora. Every second and fourth Wednesday, the Dolphin Dive, diving into the stories of student athletes, coaches, future Dolphins alumni, and more. You can find in the administration. You can find all this content by going to the Lemoyne tab on wakeupcalldt.com. You can go to the homepage right now of wakeupcalldt.com and get a ton of our videos in our coverage of Lemoyne going Division I and our exclusive breaking news of that, including the article that I wrote to be first in the world to share that with you. And of course, you can find all of our content on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt by clicking subscribe. For more information, go to LemoyneDolphins.com. And as always, Fins way up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We just aired our panel discussion for the first time ever, making history. Every single coach and campus director who was just hired, Mary Hawkins, joining me for a wonderful ice-breaking rapid fire to laugh and to truly get to know the personalities of everybody on staff. Brian Yurton, the esports head coach who was featured for the first time ever in that panel discussion here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, to the inaugural baseball head coach Sean Peak, to men's basketball head coach Clay Gagan-Sherman, women's basketball head coach Tay Baker, national champion head coach of the men's soccer team and athletics director Nick Dmitrievsky, national champion and head coach of the women's soccer team and assistant AD Alex Grigorita, and of course new campus director Mary Hawkins. Don't miss a second of that. It's airing now as its own individual special on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt. Stay close to our social media to find out when the Bobcats will be buzzing again with student athletes, coaches, and administration. And for all of our Bobcat coverage, go to our wakeupcalldt.com website, BSC Syracuse tab. And, of course, subscribe to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt for more information on your Bobcats. Go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. And, as always, go Bobcats. I want to thank you all for tuning into today's broadcast of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I appreciate you tremendously, and I thank you for everything. May God light our path. May He guide us toward good, guard us from what is not. May He help us to know when we are wrong and how to correct and lead us in correcting it, and help us to know when we are right and to stand firmly in that even when people tell us we are wrong. May the things out of our control get under control in a good way. And what I mean by that is may the things out of our control, may things work out, may we respond to them well, and may we find a way always and may the things in our control, may we do well with those. I love y'all, and I appreciate y'all. I hope you have a great day. Thanks to Avicolli's for the ingredients to success. Thanks for Dave and helping me with that, and for everything Dave Pasiak does with the NVU Linden Hornets men's basketball team in Vermont, and everything he does here on the show for many years, over a decade, and all of our NBA conversation as well as our friendship above everything. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Love you, Dave. And I'll talk with y'all soon. Find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. I just put a poll up for the NBA Conference Finals. Who do you think is going to win in the East? Miami or Boston? Who do you think is going to win in the West? The Los Angeles Lakers or Denver? So vote in those polls by going to Twitter at CallDT, subscribing, following, and answering the poll questions. So with that being said, have a fantastic day. God bless, no stress. Do your best, always.